Hey, Dr. Mike here. Stay tuned for Longevity Hacks with Dr. Robert Silverman.
You're listening to Live Foreverish, a show dedicated to helping you live just a little longer. Here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Crystal Gossard.
All right, welcome to Live Foreverish. We have a special guest today, Dr. Crystal.
A returning guest.
A returning guest, that's
Yes.
right. Dr. Robert Silverman, or Dr. Rob. Yeah, he's a chiropractic doctor, clinical nutritionist, national and international speaker, author of Amazon's bestseller, Immune Reboot. He's also the founder and CEO of Westchester Integrative Health Center with 25 years of clinical experience. He's an expert in health, longevity, lifestyle. Am I missing anything, Dr. Rob? Welcome to the show.
You're doing great. I love it. You're hired.
All right, great. So I'm happy you're on. We had a great conversation with you last time. We're gonna be talking about some different things today, and I think we wanted to center more around like longevity and even how that may connect to the immune system with the book that you wrote, Immune Reboot. So I'd like to get kind of your just basic definition for a lay audience of longevity. What does that mean to you?
So for me, longevity is lifespan versus health span. Everybody knows what a lifespan is. It's how long you live. Now, interestingly enough, in that lifespan, in America, our numbers have been precipitously decreasing. I think the average now is 73.2 years between men and women, obviously.
Depressing.
However, your health span is 64 years, which means that you live in good health without any chronic disease. So that's over a 9-year difference. There poses the problem. I like to also insert the concept of vitality. So vitality is a 70-year-old man able to go for a walk, maybe a light run with his dog. Grandma being able to do what she wants with her grandchildren. So it's lifespan versus health span with the concept of vitality.
Well, that's our show.
That's what Live Forever
Ish is about, right? Strong, vibrant,
healthier
active,
years.
yeah, healthier
We
years.
always talk about being able to get up out of the chair.
Yeah, without making noises. And I'm already kind of there.
Yes, and being active. And I'm happy you brought out that point, Dr. Rob, because at least here in the U.S., we can keep people alive for a very long time.
Sure, but
we have the medical advances, the technology, the medications to extend that lifespan. But are those years quality years?
Just go into an internist's office and you'll see people in their 70s and 80s. They're alive, but they don't look alive.
Yeah, you're alive, but are you living?
Right.
You know, and that's where when we talk about Live Forever-ish.
Right.
Kind of intersecting being alive and living as well. Yeah.
So what about the hallmarks of aging like if we're measuring these things, lifespan, health span, vitality, how are we measuring this? Like what are some of those hallmarks, I guess you would call them, right? Or biomark, whatever it is of aging.
Well, the hallmarks of aging for me are very unique. And I concur and want to piggyback on what you said. It's all about living a good quality life because health is wealth. That said, the hallmarks of aging are simple. Immune health, hence the book Immune Reboot. We all need an immune resilient system. Now, what that means is our ability for our immune system to be able to be diverse, variable, ward off new variants of viruses, bacteria, pathogens, and the like. Inflammation. Unfortunately, too much inflammation is the backbone for a lot of disease. So my mantra is to manage and modulate inflammation. So many of my patients come in and are pre-inflamed and are doing things to add to the inflammation. So everybody out there, the first thing you want to do is quell and manage your inflammation. Number 3, your microbiome. It's all about your microbiome and your gut health. 80% of your immune cells are in your gut. It's where your macro and micronutrients are absorbed. So we want to take good care about our gut health. It has been stated the first time the outside world meets the inside world is when something goes through our gut barrier and through our microbiome. Number 4, mitochondrial dysfunction. Everybody knows that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. The number one reason we see a doctor today is fatigue. That's attributed to mitochondrial dysfunction. Some of the more present day issues are things like long COVID, which again, a lot of fatigue, a lot of mitochondrial dysfunction. Incidentally, mitochondrial dysfunction pertains to neurodegenerative diseases because our brain is our number one mitochondrial organ in our body.
Hmm.
So, interestingly enough, mitochondrial dysfunction really discusses neurodegenerative disease. In addition to that, I'll finish with muscle mass, sarcopenia, the loss of
Ooh.
muscle mass.
We can talk
Ooh,
about that one.
muscle mass is your longevity organ. It's your
Yeah.
currency of longevity. So, young lady, young man, myself, we all need to do weight resistance. And because muscle mass is not only a longevity organ, it's also an endocrine organ, which means that it's able to dispense with sugar, decreasing all these dramatic markers of illness. So, everybody, get on the ground and do 3 push ups right now.
Ooh. I think I can.
Yeah, you
So,
probably could.
I can do modified push-ups, 3 easy, much more. And I struggle
Modified.
with the modified on your knees.
Oh, come on.
But I can't do quite as many of the normal push-ups.
Yeah.
But
So-
I can do a few.
So a lot of things there that you went through. So your 4 things. You said immune. I'd like to come back to that, but before we do,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned the microbiome. So obviously, they're good fermented foods,
Inflammation.
probiotics. You gotta reduce the inflammation.
Mhm.
These are common things that we've been talking about for a while. But I'm glad you brought up the mitochondrial issue. To me, it's simple. If you can't make energy, you ain't gonna go very far. I mean, it's I don't know how else to say it, right? You got to protect the mitochondria because they can't protect themselves. And most of that glycation and oxidative stress is occurring in that mitochondria,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yes. And so when we talk about the immune system, and I don't know if we'll go into details on each one of these, but I know we want to kind of focus in and zero in on immune system and how that relates to longevity. We've talked about, Dr. Mike, immune senescence.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy you brought that up, being able to fight new pathogens. We have a limited number of these. We call them the naive T cells, those
Yeah.
cells that have not yet been experienced a pathogen. And so, yes, we do call that immune senescence, not being able to robustly mount a fever, not being able to fight a pathogen. So how does that directly key into the concept of healthy aging, and what are some of your strategies?
Oh, that's a great question. Immune senescence, actually, AKA also known as zombie cells, cells that are dead that are walking around like the Boris Karloff and spewing out inflammatory markers. Goodness gracious. So those are cells that should be washed away, and the body's unable to do that, leading you down a path of too much inflammation. But when I talk about longevity and immunity, I'd like to refer to a concept. The concept is the key to longevity is turning on the health switches. However, the master switch is having a robust and resilient immune system. So we talk about longevity, we talk about our immune system, senescent cells. You're only as young as your immune system. We talk about chronological and biological age. I will tell you your immune system, and you brought up a great marker. Interestingly, if that marker is naive T cells. So there's some other biomarkers of longevity. Again, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, TNF alpha. They're all inflammatory markers. Everybody should get those tested when they go for their regular checkup. C-reactive protein, which is a tissue inflammatory marker. Hemoglobin A1C, which is your average blood sugar over 90 to 120 days. Quite frankly, the number one inflammatory marker is really blood sugar, i.e. hemoglobin A1C, and insulin. Some other real quick markers everybody should test for would be LP little a, which is a cholesterol marker. It increases your incidence, if you have it, of 25% of heart disease, and only less than 1% of America has it tested. And lastly, everybody should always test for some markers in your gut health. LPS and zonulin. LPS is an endotoxin, When that comes out, that's very detrimental to one's overall health. And zonulin implies that you now have leaky gut. And
Mm.
lastly, just to put it all in a nice tight bow, immunity is your key to longevity. They studied centurions and found out that they had a different immune system, and that immune system started and was harbored and fostered in the gut. Everybody take your pre and probiotics. And also, mastering the longevity code, going back to what we said before, having an immune system that is resilient.
Wow. So that's kind of where you start with testing. That's a good place to start to identify those markers. And he's connecting the gut to the immune system. As he mentioned, the majority of the immune system is in your gut. It's where the outside world meets the inside world. And so biomarkers. And then the next thing, what do you do about that?
Yeah. It was like, what practical advice can we give people to actually improve on some of these biomarkers? If you're a standard American eating a standard American diet, these markers probably aren't going to come back all that great. Let's just be honest. So where do we start? It obviously seems that we start with you, a nutritionist, and I think, Dr. Rob, you would agree, we start with food. So Dr. Rob, what do you like to recommend for people who are coming off of or moving from a standard American diet into one that's going to be more about health span?
Great question. It is all about food. It's been said that food is medicine. Let medicine be your food. I always say good food leads to health, information throughout the body. Bad food leads to inflammation in the body. Here's some hacks that I would recommend for longevity. Dramatically reduce the ingestion of sugar or added sugar, or if you will, GPS. No gluten, no ultra processed food, no sugar, DNA, no dairy, no nicotine, no artificial sweeteners. Avoid vegetable oils. There are no vegetables in vegetable oils. They're industrialized pressed seed oils. They are no bueno, a non-starter. And I know you guys are down south. Try and avoid deep fried foods. Some everyday hacks, get some sleep. There's nothing more rejuvenative than a good quality sleep of 7 to 8 hours. Health detectables. I own no stock in any of these companies, but a health detectable to understand where you are, how much sleep you have, what's your heart rate variability, what's your blood sugar at the moment. Intermittent fasting and feeding. However, there's a little caveat. If you're a male, you intermittent fast without any concern. If you're a female, there's a couple of tricks to the trade to make it more accurate and just more effective for you. Low-level laser therapy, if you're going to use a modality, has been shown to really imbue the mitochondria with energy. Stay within people that are positive, have a purpose, mission, and community. Hormesis, stress to the body. Hot and cold. I sauna every day, and then I do my cold plunge. I don't need to go in a tub. I just need to walk outside in New York. It's like 10 degrees now. And of course, one of the biggest hacks is to keep your gut barrier intact and remove all food sensitivities.
Wow, that's a
big
hefty list.
Yeah.
How do you prioritize that list with your patients? Like, is there
Start with food.
Okay.
Start with food. Everything begins and starts with food. And again, if I had to do anything, I would reduce added sugar. Watch ultra-processed food. 63% of the calories that the average American consumes comes from ultra-processed food. Hey, can we take a step? Do you know who made ultra-processed food? Well, I'll fill in the answer. The tobacco companies, when they purchased food companies, and they did so, they said, well, what's our advantage? Our advantage is if we make addictive foods. So they use these preservatives, they use sugar, etc. And everybody jumped in. So if it comes in a package, forget it. Or as Jacqueline once said, if man makes it, I won't eat it.
So, and I was going to ask you that. How would you define ultra processed food? Like, what would our listeners know to say, okay, I need to limit or avoid these foods?
I'll just say anything with 5 ingredients or more, you probably should pass on.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't read the ingredients or if you can't pronounce them. Right? What about, so moving from food, do you have some of your top favorite supplements that you like to maybe add to some people's diets, knowing that often there's a gap,
Mm-hmm.
even when we're trying to eat better, especially when you're trying to rev up gut health, mitochondrial health. So do you have any 3 or 4 supplements you like to use?
Absolutely. Pre and probiotics. And by the way, prebiotics now have taken the mantle as more important than probiotics, and prebiotics being fiber. It's been stated that if we increase our fiber consumption by 10 grams per day, that we decrease our mortality by 14%. So
Wow.
prebiotics feed the probiotics to proliferate in the gut and throughout the body. So that would be number one. Number two would be a real obvious one, vitamin D, D3. Make sure you take your vitamin D3 with K2. In addition to that, I'm a big omega-3 fatty acid guy. I think these are basics, but they are real without question great for longevity.
Yeah, for sure.
A methylated vitamin. And let me give you the secret sauce, BPC 157. It's a peptide that's referred to as a Wolverine supplement because it's like the Marvel comic book character. It has this amazing healing capacity right before your eyes.
Say that. We say that again. Yeah, say that again.
If you
BPC 157.
And what is that exactly?
That's a peptide. It's not an amino acid. It's a peptide that's referred as a Wolverine supplement because it enables you to heal so quickly. It's actually been extracted from gastric juice in 1993. It's come really to the forefront in the last 6 months to 2 years. And it's a great add to everybody's nutritional supplement armamentarium.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's a nice list
I
of
know.
foods and supplements. Great information. Where do you think the future is in longevity nutrition, longevity supplementation, medicine, whatever?
Okay, so supplementation, I think that the now and the future is the BPC 157 and all these individual ingredients that mimic drugs but don't bring the side effects. Hence the idea of supplements. They're out there. Number two, I think I always like to adhere to test and not guess. So I think gut barrier testing is right there on the cusp of being a critical add. Every patient that I communicate with gets a gut barrier test, food sensitivities. And the reason food sensitivities are so important is because that when you ingest a food that you're sensitive to, it takes 72 hours for symptomology and inflammation to rise. Hence the idea that nobody knows that they have a food sensitivity. And I believe cardiac inflammatory testing is critical, looking at the LP(a), looking at direct LDL. I think there's too many practitioners that take very rudimentary tests when it comes to the cardiac inflammatory spectrum. I mean, I think they're looking at the top of the river, but they're not diving in and looking at the depth of what they need to. And if you really want to get to it, you have to look at the body from the inside out.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Rob. What about your book, Immune Reboot? Where can our audience find that?
Thank you so much. Immune Reboot, immunereboot.com. Feel free to order it. It's been an Amazon bestseller. It's a great conversation piece. Reach out to me. Let's talk about your immune health. Follow me on social media, Dr. Robert Silverman.
Hey, thanks for coming on today. Fantastic information.
Anytime. You guys do a great job. It's my pleasure.
All right. We appreciate that. So you're listening to Live Forever-ish. Don't forget, you can go to liveforeverish.com.
Yes.
Right? And we have, I keep testing Dr. Crystal. How many episodes now?
I have no idea.
What was that, Hannah? 433. Whoa.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. 433 episodes that you can download, like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a show. That's liveforeverish.com. And then our sponsor, Life Extension, wants to say thank you with a discount code podcast. Go to lifeextension.com, purchase what you want. When you're checking out, put podcast in. And what do they get, Dr. Crystal?
They get 10% off plus free shipping.
On
$50 or more.
There you go.
So $50 or more, 10% off plus free shipping with the code podcast.
Yeah. You weren't ready for
lifeextension.com.
You weren't ready for me to pass it on to you.
I wasn't. I was just dwelling in our conversation
Yeah.
on some of those longevity, immune system. That was more of the kind of a longevity mechanisms of aging 101.
it was more kind of like the pillars of longevity and where you want to, focus your attention, food, supplements. So that was really good. So thank you for joining us today. Don't forget that we post every Monday and Wednesday, and you can find that all at liveforeverish.com. I'm Dr. Mike, and that is
Dr. Crystal.
Thanks for listening.